Welcome back to Terminus, the serial of extreme metal podcasts. I am the death metal guy, aka Henry Rollins. I was with a band called Black Flag that toured extensively in the 70s and 80s, and that entire time we never compromised, we never quit, and we always did what was important to us.
Shit, man. It's so great to meet you, Henry. I met Henry Rollins once, and he just made fun of me for being skinny, which I found was a little bit, I was like, what do you expect? I'm a fucking 17-year-old who likes Black Flag.
I fucking hate Henry Rollins so much.
Yeah. Okay, well, and I'm the black metal guy, aka Greg Ginn's Grateful Dead cover band. Dude, Black Flag has to be one of the most overrated bands of all time.
I never listened, obviously I never listened to them super heavily, but I do remember liking, My War, and when they started doing the kind of sludgy stuff, I think that was cool.
Remember, I always read that then they started doing sludgy stuff, so I ignored it. Maybe I'd like it now.
It's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not really into
you can't, Damaged isn't a bad album, it's just you know what it is? It's way more self-consciously arty and cool guy than either Black Flag wanted themselves to come off as, or people think of it as.
Yeah, and then he ended up hanging out with all those guys later in life anyway, so...
Yeah, sure. It's Rollins wasn't the real creative force behind Black Flag. Rollins was a hired hand at that.
Yeah,
it was
the guitarist kid. Yeah, right, yeah.
Who was old.
And I remember that Henry was living in the shed behind Greg's house and shit.
I remember I was 16, got Damaged, was like, okay, sick, I've got a real hardcore album, this is fucking hardcore, so why does it sound to me less heavy than some of the not real hardcore that I have? And, there was still something, but I really was into it, right? And I tried hard to be into it. And then by the time, when I discovered Discharge, when I would have been 18, it was
you could just shelve all that shit, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, this is what I was looking for.
I think the one thing I still have a soft spot for is Minor Threat. I don't know why, but I don't know. I've
been thinking of going back to check them out now that when I was a kid, I found the attitude so off-putting.
Yeah. Out of Step is still pretty cool, though.
They're a good band. Yeah, but Negative Approach is the better version of Minor Threat.
Yeah, but I listen to hardcore, old school hardcore punk once a year. So
yeah, we'll do a paywalled old school hardcore episode sometime.
That would be good. It could be you teaching me, because I know
and I'm gonna make a YouTube playlist for it too. I realized I've started making YouTube playlists. I'm gonna make one that's just ripping hardcore EPs from the 80s and 90s.
The 7-inch is the ideal format. No.
Yeah, or even up to, I remember, I was just listening to Integrity yesterday, and I was like, my God, I fucking love Integrity. Okay, so let's start the show.
Yeah, so we got 5 records today, or 4, excuse me.
It's always one's a split.
Yeah, one's a split. This is our first split we've ever done. It's just we tend to just do, full length, the occasional EP or something. But yeah, we're doing the split now. So you have got the first 2 that we're opening up with. So
I think general theme today would be sort of nasty central, nasty Central American, as in Central USA, or Midwestern Central, not coastal. Let's say nasty anti-coastal BM.
Except that neither of my picks are from
No. And your picks. And then we're doing Funeral Doom. The bulk of the show is we're going to be talking about Doom records after this. I was just giving them a sense of where we're going.
I got you. Okay.
So my first one is the Grundhyrde Klagesturm split, which is out just maybe a month ago on a new label called Nithstang. This is the sort of extremely cult shit that you don't hear about unless the guy from the label tells you it exists. So
not on Metal Archives. Do you know how hard it was to track this fucking thing down to listen to it for this?
Well, for the listeners, there's a really good YouTube channel, Greg Beale. I assume that's his real name. Greg Beale, if you ever hear this show, get in touch, cause your channel's lit. He Biehl, and he just seems to know a ton of people and get a bunch of shit.
Yeah, we can just we'll just throw the link to his channel in the description for this.
Yeah. It's a great channel, so it's on there. And then that's on this new label Nithstang, which is, I would say, extremely raw and or kind of stompy black metal, ranging from more melodic to more just hardcore stuff with a mysterious guy lineage, perhaps, or definitely. And this other one is a band called Violes Par Les Cygnes. And they, I think, are from the UK, although they have a French name, which I assume means raped by swans.
Yep, that's what it means.
Raped by swans!
Which is a very, admittedly, an extremely cool name. Yeah.
It's a really cool name. I mean, it seems like sort of like the Leda and the Swan myth, you know. Well, the Leda and the Swan thing, it's Greek mythology, so there's no clear lines there. Anyway, so the label, what interests me is the label, Nihilistic Noise Propagandas. They're in Pennsylvania. I cannot remember more specifically right now. But they're basically came out last year, I think, roughly, and they've put out a bunch of stuff in a year, which is you can hear hardcore roots in some of the stuff, and there's like a really refined aesthetic to the label that I think you wouldn't have gotten before the incorporation of hardcore stuff into metal. But it's grindcore, war metal, and noise stuff. And he seems to favor projects that integrate all of these. He also put out a really good record by sort of more melodic BM band called Sylvan Throne, who I strongly recommend. So it's sort of interesting. I think it's sort of the sort of artistic and forward-thinking version of brutal, stupid music. Yeah. And where we talked when we did our revenge segment about how there's a lot of sort of trendy revenge worship now. Yeah. This is like the positive corollary to that. This is like the other side of it is that there are genuinely cool people who aren't trendies, who are trying to take war metal and extreme noisy Black Death stuff in interesting directions. And, so these are, and Violes Par Les Cygnes is an attempt at integrating BM and power electronic industrial stuff. All right, so what are your two?
Oh, now that you're done with your thesis statement? Okay. All right, so I've got a Funeral Doom 2-piece for you guys. One was kind of at, you reminded me that this record was out. The first record I've got is the new one, which is a collaboration between Bell Witch and Aerial Ruin. It's called Stygian Bough Volume 1, which I guess means they'll be doing another, released on Profound Lore. I do like Bell Witch a lot. I still think Four Phantoms, their second record, is their best thing, but I was interested to check this one out. And then, in a huge blast from the past that I just discovered like last week, is the new record by the Funeral Orchestra with negative evocation rites, released on Nuclear War Now, which I've noticed over the past couple of years has been starting to do some of this like cult funeral doom stuff, which is interesting, I guess. Their first record in 17 years since their first one, it was called Feeding the Abyss back in 2003, which is kind of a minor funeral doom classic. So, definitely interested to check that one out as well. So, let's jump right into it with Grundhyrde and Klagesturm.
Yeah, so that was a really long intro. I guess I basically said part of what I wanted to say for this album already. I don't know.
You running off on a tangent and talking to yourself for 4 minutes? Never!
Well, it was I got ahead of myself. So now we've got that part over with. So basically, Grundhyrde. What is Grundhyrde? It sounds, although the name is German, I think it's fair to say, although both of these bands have German names, Grundhyrde and Klagesturm, they both sound fairly French. Grundhyrde is...
What were you saying? Well, that was something I wanted to talk about kind of as a preface to this. both of these are very French-inspired bands, and that's been a thread through a lot of these episodes. So I guess I was wondering, you are much more tapped into black metal, especially like nowadays black metal, than I am. Is this a coincidence of the kind of stuff that we like and what you're bringing to the table, or is French just like a cool thing now to do?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think France is weird, right? Because there's not just one French BM scene,
Yeah,
right?
there's a few.
It's hard, yeah, it's sort of hard to reduce to any one thing, which is one reason, even though France has been killing it since the late 90s, it's sort of hard to talk about a French specific, yeah.
But specifically, we're talking about like the Seigneur Voland derived melodic black metal.
Exactly, yeah, so this stuff is huge now. Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about it before in reference to a more general sort of, you know, there's been this sort of blending together of the Seigneur Voland thing with Satanic War Master and all those Finnish bands who I'm pretty sure were listening to Seigneur Voland and probably Hero Lorn and stuff in the beginning, right? So there's, and so with a lot of bands, you might get this kind of game of telephone, and that sort of flattens these bands down into one or two cool things you can do with the guitar technique, right? So you get all of these bands, some of them themselves from Finland and France, some of them from elsewhere, some of them from Germany, who sort of have this kind of, they focus really hard on a few kind of epic riffing things that you get from Sargeist or whatever.
Yeah, Germany does not have a distinct sound the way the other
And so
do.
I think right now, that particular, I guess I call it like Franco-Finnish or whatever, or Finno-Frankian, if you want. Guitar sound is hegemonic.
It's the modern underground melodic black metal
Yes,
style.
I think it's basically just like, for a certain kind of, and it's good because it's sort of budget melody. You don't have to be technically skilled in the ways that the 90s bands were to construct this more, to build out the more melodic and epic side of the music.
It's deceptive. It's impressively lush despite how easy it actually is to play.
And it has the advantage. It's a technology, right? It's a riffing technology.
Yeah.
And it has the advantage of, not only is it simple to play, but it's germinal. You can do more with it if you want, right? So like that band Finn, who broke up a while ago, who were so killer, like that guy played those riffs, but with like four string chords and whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to iterate on it and make it your own.
Yeah, and people have been doing that now. So I think what sets apart, that's true. And also just the French chivalric BM, which is just, that's just killing it right now. And I guess that's an example of the French themselves focusing in on that thing that they do well. So like, we've talked before on the last episode about Vehemence. I mentioned them in connection
who I, by the way, listened to just recently. That album is fucking killer.
Isn't it?
Oh my god! I sent you a message.
It's
you never
glorious.
responded to.
Yes. No, you did. Yeah.
Well, it's a perfect fusion of like Seigneur Voland and Hero Lorn, who is like a giant thing for me.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I hear the Seigneur Voland directly. I'm sure he listens to them, but I'm not even sure I hear it directly there. Just because he's responding, I hear the Hero Lorn for sure. He's responding to so many other French BM bands that already were doing this. So there's like Our Lock. Who are the sort of paterfamilias of this group, who will never get as much attention because they were doing it before, and it's not quite as poppy. They're fantastic.
It also reminded me of
Darkenhold.
It also reminded me of that Baise Mahesh band that you showed me the other day.
Yes, Baise Mahesh, or whatever, or Ash, Baise Mahesh, which kiss my axe in French. So they sort of integrate this melodic French BM sound with the more muscular kind of Aosathi French thing, I think. Yeah. But two other things. Two more French bands, because you asked me about French bands.
Go ahead.
So there's also the scene around what was it? The labels have changed, but there's the group of bands like Cavern, Necropole, Arvandil.
Yeah.
And those bands were doing a much rawer version of this sound a very long time ago. Like you can find versions of this back in 2012. That was less technical than stuff like Our Lock. And that's become prominent through this band Cenotaph, which has at least one guy from that scene in it. And that's a sort of more polished, florid version of the sound. I think that came out on either NWN or Iron Bonehead, but they've done really well. So the French are killing it right now in terms of this melodic black metal sound. What sets Grundhyrde apart, I think, is that Grundhyrde is really imitating Seigneur Voland and not either this sort of general homogenized Finno-French thing or the more recent French bands. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Honestly, what I really detected on this one was actually like proto-Seigneur Voland, more like Crystal Knock to me.
Interesting. I used to... I listened to the Crystal Knox tape a fair amount back in the day, but decided I didn't like it. I might like it now. The musicianship is awful.
I didn't think it was that bad. If you listen to like Blood Drenched Memorial, but I mean, you can see how it's these very primordial building blocks of Seigneur Voland.
That's what it was. It was like if I'd heard that first before Seigneur Voland, I think
it might have
made
more sense.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was the substantial thing that I detected is like, because Seigneur Voland, this is very simple music, and that's not knocking it because I enjoy this a lot. But this is definitely gesturing towards a more kind of formative style of early melodic black metal in that French tradition. I think Seigneur Voland is almost too complex for this.
Interesting. I almost thought this was more, you know what? Yeah, it's, but it's for Seigneur Voland and Crystal Knock worshipping stuff. This is on the more complex side. There's a band, this reminds me a lot of another sort of, anti-coastal black metal band from, I think from Ohio called Geheimnisvoll that I mentioned briefly in connection to Oppressive Descent last episode.
Oh, okay.
And Geheimnisvoll also had this very specific focus on the Seigneur Voland Crystal Knock sound. And what I liked about them and what I liked about them was that unlike these more melodic bands that take it to this one-dimensionally melodic or sugary place, right? Seigneur Voland sounded evil, right? And they had a lot of kind of...
That's an interesting reading, because I don't think of it like that, but go on.
Oh, yeah. They have lots of kinds of riffs that have more tension built into them than like a Sargeist riff. They have riffs... They have more chromaticism. They have more...
yeah, but that's just the part of the medieval battle before you raise your flag on the battlements, you know?
No, I get that. I get that. I'm saying that it's yes, they have that, whereas a lot of these other bands have the flag on the battlements exclusively. Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's give some context. We've gone a while without talking.
This has been a weird episode already. Yeah. All right.
So let's go with. I think you've got your first.
Yeah, this is a pretty. I think this is just a really strong lead-off. I'd say what separates this band from I think this band comes off as better at this style than Geheimnisvoll, more developed. And in part because Geheimnisvoll had a few of those sort of killer Seigneur Voland type riffs, but this band preserves the darker side while having just killer hook riff after killer hook riff. So it just... this one comes in hot. So let's start with the beginning of Abysmal Suffering of Eternal Black Void.
All right, let's give that a shot. Yeah, that's definitely right out of that Seigneur Voland playbook.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like, I mean, when you're doing a band like this that's studied in a particular micro niche, right? You have to really be good at it for it to be worth listening to.
Yeah.
This could be, Seigneur Voland probably released less than 20 songs in their career, maybe 25 at most. This could easily, if I were just listening to, the Final Stand comp or whatever, this could just be on there. Right?
Yeah, it definitely could.
It easily would be on there, and the second riff that sort of two-part, the A-B, the second riff that comes in, the sort of the A-B sort of rising riff is just easily, that's not like a A+ Seigneur Voland riff, but that's like a solid low A, good Seigneur Voland riff.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, it could also...
That's a raise your fist riff.
I mean, even that opening riff reminds me of, like, the opening... riff off of, like, the Seigneur Voland, like, self-titled EP. So,
it's Conquering Eagle.
Yeah, which is, in a sense, like, that riff is almost like the paradigm for this entire style of music.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I mean, the guy I went back and lived on the first Sargeist album, he literally rips that riff off.
Well, it's also very close to...
As well as literally ripping off the riff from Krieg by Gorgoroth, which I consider unforgivable. Yeah.
I mean, there's even a version of that riff on the third Sargeist album, Let the Devil In. Empire is Suffering has a riff. The opening riff on that is very similar in that same sort of, like, arcing character. Okay, so let me throw in my sample real quick.
Yeah, let's go.
We'll talk about kind of what I'm reading on this. So this is off The Scourge of Impalement.
Clearly written from the perspective of a vampire.
I do find some of the titling kind of weird. It's like it suggests something much grimmer than this music really is, but okay.
All right. Yeah.
So let's give that a try. Okay, I think that's a pretty good example of the kind of the stompier parts on the record.
Yes. Yeah.
And I like it. We reverse because I'm the one that's supposed to do the blast ones, and you're the one that's supposed to do, like, the stomp riffs.
Yeah.
This also, I just wanted to say...
This, to me, is a good example of the kind of more aggressive, high-tension riffs that Seigneur Voland has. Yeah, some of these other bands that imitate it don't have, right?
Yeah, there's also a little bit of... It's not a band that I like very much, but I think that parts like that remind me of certain parts of Absurd in their best moments. That kind of oi stomp thing they're doing.
Yeah, sure. There's like a whole just sub-thing. It's not in any one genre, but if you talk to a certain person who knows what's up, right? Everyone knows what stompy black metal is.
Yeah. Everyone knows what
you know what it is? Better than Absurd, right? Moonblood.
Yeah,
Moonblood is actually a good band. Right?
Yeah, that's true. Absurd is not a good band. But one thing that was interesting to me about all this stuff, like I wrote in the notes, I wrote in the notes something to the effect of, I have written these songs 20 times before.
That sounds a little...
No.
A little... Have you written have you written the second riff? You know, have you written the best riffs?
Give me a fucking... No, but what I'm saying is I've written a lot of just like ideas for demos, and they never really went anywhere. I didn't bother recording them. Some of them are recorded. Sure. You know, I've done like 20 of these which is not knocking it at all. That's really interesting because I think we're almost discovering, so there's kind of like, I mean, like I've told you, it's like I've had this 4-track demo I've been sitting on for a while, and now I'm like, well, shit, Grundhyrde is like basically that. So it's like, should I bother with it?
It scooped you, yeah. No, I mean, I think that means there's a window for it. I think that means record it and send it to this guy.
Yeah, and that's why I was really interested in is like
also just full disclosure, the guy from this label is a friend of mine. So
it's all good.
Yeah. So you can send it to him.
I'll send it to him. Yeah. What's interesting though is that means that because it's not just me, it's not just him, it's a lot of other people. So there's almost this very like micro niche of old school French melodic black metal worship one man project.
In the U.S.
In the U.S. even, yeah. That actually splits it down even further.
That's what I like about this sort of anti-coastal BM thing, is that it is much sort of grittier and more sort of aggressive and cryptic.
Yeah.
And sort of, and much more authentic than, last episode you were sort of, I mean, I think we both spend a lot of time shitting on most of the black metal that comes from,
Yeah.
The media centered urban hubs on the coast, right? And so this stuff feels more, not that there aren't good bands from around there. Last time we talked about Oppressive Descent, who are from the Portland area and who are very much sort of on a generally similar kind of trip, right? But,
I think, this is interesting. So I guess what I would say is, overall, I really like this side. There's not like a ton of material to work with. Obviously, this is just kind of like a first demo, so to speak. I would say I do want to hear this developed a little bit more. Like, there's a couple parts on this side where there's some, like, guitar interplay left and right. I want that expanded upon. I think we're dealing with a drum machine here. I'm not 100% certain.
My guess would be no.
No? Okay.
I know that he knows how to play drums.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. So, well, in that case, I would say, if it's not a drum machine, I kind of like when this style has more of that, like, clattering a little bit too fast effect. Like, maybe just, like, suck down a few shots of whiskey before you get into it or something. Because the drums, I mean, the drums are totally functional on this, but I think they need a little bit more, like, energy behind them. I don't think they need to... I understand the impulse to have them recede into the background and let the riffs do all the talking, but I think they can really add a voice here if, like, overdriven a little bit in the same way the rest of the music is.
We should mention the vocals, too, which have a good...
The vocals are very distinctly French black metal with that, like, reverbed out to the point where it's whispery quality.
Yeah, it's almost more abstract, and I think I like that. That's a unique thing about this project.
Yeah, I like it. Actually, it reminds me of some other bands, which are pretty close to me, so I'll talk to you about those offline, what the vocals really remind me of. But all
right, fair enough. Also, just the lead riff to Vespers of Hatred. Again, it's a kind of riff that's kind of stock, sort of descending, thrashing, melodic black metal riff. Yeah. But boy, does he nail it. It's, so this is a strong thing. And it's, also, what you're saying about there being some sort of demand, some sort of groundswell of interest in this stuff. It's just like, this is what this style allows, right? This specific Seigneur Valon micro niche and also the more just generally Finno-French stuff is there's as much room in the style as there is to write a good melody.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like D-Beat where, you have to... You can write a better and worse D-Beat riff, right? But you're working with extreme stylistic strictures of a certain kind, right? Yeah. This is like, there's something about, right, the flowing quality of black metal trem and the way that there's already a complexity built into the kind of way the chords work between the more sort of storming stuff and the more triumphant stuff. You can do a lot with it.
Yeah you can. So let's, with that, let's take a look at the other side of this, Klagesturm.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is just one fairly long song, about 10-11 minute track called Sailing Anon into Hyperborean Oceans. So, do you know anything about this guy?
Not at all.
Yeah, I have no clue.
I have no clue. It's, I assume this person is in other bands. I don't know what other bands they're in.
Yeah.
It's, what did it... I want to say before we get into it, and before I forget, that the intro, the lead into this track...
Yeah.
The lead into the Grundhyrde side is pretty good, too, but the lead into this track sounds like a Coil song. And I would love to hear this guy just record more of that.
That's a weird comparison.
The lead-in is totally deranged. It's got this kind of like banging on pots and pans quality and this weird sort of tin whistly tribal melody. It doesn't sound like a black metal intro, but it works as one. So that's really good.
Yeah, I got a sense throughout this track that this guy is not just from that, but kind of inspired by electronic and industrial music to a degree.
How so? I got a sense there's a lot of use of slower tempos here, which is distinctive.
A lot of use of slower tempos, but I'll tell you what, let's play my sample, which, we're both sampling off the same track, but let me play mine real quick, and then I'll kind of elaborate on that idea.
Oh yeah, for context for this, it's like, this track has like one main theme that comes back a lot, so this is from late in the track, but it'll give you an idea of the main theme.
Yeah, so let's give that a shot real quick.
I just kept listening to that one. Sorry.
I was wondering where you were. Okay.
I liked that breakdowny part it goes into, but it goes into it after the sample. It's anyway.
Yeah. Well,
what were you going to say?
Well, no, I guess I was going to bring up the... there's a few things that give me the indications of this, like, kind of, he's listening to electronic music. And one of the big things I would point to is that the fact that after that, at the beginning of that sample, it starts with a sort of breakbeat, in a way. Like, on the drums.
There's a really interesting drum thing that happens there. Yeah, it's like not standard black metal drum.
It is like almost a variation on like an amen break. Or, something that would be sampled electronic music. And at first you think it's like, oh, it's like a guy stuttering on a thrash beat, but then they bring it back exactly the same halfway through that sample. So clearly it's a very deliberate idea. So between that, the way the mixing is with that like high clipping tone on the vocals, which I think is very deliberate, and the Coil inspired intro, I think this is a guy who I think he's got a lot of appreciation for the style of black metal, but I think he might also be bringing in sort of an electronic background, which has always been...
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
I mean, the electronic thing has really always been a part of black metal, even from very early on.
Yeah, Varg standing at the back of the techno show drinking his milk.
Listening to Tangerine Dream and Kraftwerk.
What a fucking weirdo, man. It's, it's like, let's get the guy in our band who just drinks milk at the techno show. He definitely won't murder any of us.
So what was your kind of takeaway from the song?
I thought it was good. I liked it. I like it a lot. I think I've listened to it on good headphones and also on good speakers. On good speakers, it's not as strong. It sounds better on headphones. Something about it. There's actually a lot of low end.
You need
in
that
this
bass
mix.
pumped directly in your ears, especially when it's this raw.
Yeah, and it doesn't come through on bigger speakers, so I'd be interested to hear him bring that out more.
Mm-hmm.
I think also there's a, these are, as you said, kind of elaborate French riffs, but there's often a forceful quality in the way they're constructed that I like. The other non-black metal influence I hear is, which could be wrong, but I think it is kind of at the root of a lot of different variations of American BM, is screamo, right? Not in the sense of, hairspray crap, but in the sense of just, angular hardcore based on octaves.
Well, yeah, I mean, even that riff I just played, that could be like off an Orchid song.
Yeah, so let's play my pick, which has this kind of this is a second, this is sort of like the other main riff or whatever. And this is very propulsive, and it's kind of got I don't know if he's playing octaves here, but it has a nice ringing quality in this sort of clear-cut ringing lead that I think is lead melody. That sounds cool and sounds kind of like a screamo thing. Let's play it.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's the riff that plays when you sort of pitch someone off the battlements of your dark castle.
I will say I really enjoy the just absurdly clipped DSBM vocals on this side. Like, I fucking love, especially for this style of black metal.
I like the amount of
yeah. I love just how shrieking it is. It's really fucking cool.
That's a great riff. That's a good example. So I was harping on this a lot with Oppressive Descent, and we were last week, and we were just talking about it with the Seigneur Voland as opposed to other melodic BM. Yeah. That riff is a really good example of something that's highly melodic. Technically, I think is all sort of relatively consonant Dorian scale kind of intervals. No, actually, no. There's some chromatic bends worked into it, right?
Yeah.
And that's a highly melodic riff that is aggressive, high tension, and sounds malevolent. Not in the sense of necessarily evil, but in the sense that it's wishing harm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
very gothic, too.
Yeah,
capital
it's
G
gothic. Definitely. And
capital G Gothic. Vampire Count shit.
Well, and that riff that I played, what's interesting is, because this is something that Oppressive Descent did too, where you're taking kind of what would be a kind of standard triumphant French black metal riff, and then you're modifying it with just this little bit of chromaticism, because that's something that happens on that main riff that I played, where you listen to that whole thing, and that could be a Winterfilleth riff if it wasn't for that last like semitone raise, that da 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 da. But then they kick it up that extra semitone, which gives it that tension as it leads into the repetition. So it's interesting that that's a technique that we're seeing used a lot to just kind of like darken this style.
And and I think with this band, I think with like Mutilation throws those in randomly.
Yeah.
Oppressive Descent will kind of do that. They'll do, it's like, let's just bend this in a really weird chromatic way mid riff.
Except Mutilation did it because he didn't really know how to play guitar. You know?
but on the riff I picked, it works more like those chromatics are in a certain way of doing chord progressions, a certain way of doing minor scales, right, in classical music or whatever. So that's the way the Norse would often build in chromatics, like da 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 da, or da. Like a lot of the ways those Norse bands would constantly just go down a semitone from the root.
Yeah.
That's like kind of those sort of shifts are built into certain kinds of, I don't know enough about music theory, right? But there are two different kinds of ways of incorporating chromaticism in, basically.
Yeah.
From within the melodic and chord structure, or as this kind of wrenching thing that you're doing to it from outside.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway, so you said you had some reservations about this one. What are they?
I think that it's just, this isn't enough to go off of for a project. I think the riffs are cool, but ultimately this is a, 10, 11-minute song with basically 2 riffs. Which isn't necessarily bad, and I think the song works, but can this band hang doing it over a more substantial release and keep it going? You know what I mean?
Seems like there's enough ideas, and I think if the guy picks up on the things that he's doing that are distinctive, because there are distinctive things here, right? The electronic-y stuff, the sort of hidden bass tones that add something to this. They're kind of long, flowing melodies, which is good.
Yeah.
All of the weird, the alternation between down tempo and then kind of driving skank beat up tempo stuff, that's all pretty distinctive, right? So if you can take those all and develop them, I think there is a lot of room. But I agree that at one track, I think I listened to it first and didn't realize it was one track. I was like, oh, well, it's over? Okay. Well,
no, it's solid, but I guess it's a good thing. It says that I want to hear more from it. I want to hear more from both these bands, but I just want to see both of them progress a little bit.
Better to release the one good track you have plus the one sick, deranged, sort of homeless elf intro rather than the
homeless elf. I like that.
Yes, yeah, it's cast out of Lothlorien for hitting, for
you had to think about where the elves lived.
No, there were different places you could reference.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So in that case, let's take a break and we'll jump back in with some more. All right. So next up, you pronounce it. Your French is better than mine.
Violes Par Les Cygnes. I don't know.
I can never tell when you pronounce the S's or not in French.
Cygne. I think probably Par Les Cygnes, and you sort of trail it off. Who knows? If you're French, you can call into the show next time. Just kidding, it's not live. And as we said before, that sort of conjures up the grotesque and extreme, strange image, raped by swans. I walked through some geese the other day. Let me tell you, they were not happy.
Oh, they're a mean animal.
No, you gotta look at each, when they hiss at you, you gotta look them each in the eye and be like, I'll kill you. I'll kill you.
I always thought, you could create a really good bed of noise for a power electronics thing by just sampling goose hissing, and you just, you pitch shift it at a bunch of different levels and layer it, I think it'd be pretty sick.
You get, sort of, how do you do it? Sort of like a, one of those mics, one of those nature mics and bread.
Yeah. All right, so how did you find these guys? Because I've never heard of them.
So this is on Nihilistic Noise Propaganda, which, as I was rambling about at the beginning of the show, is this, Pennsylvania-based, sort of avant war metal label.
Yeah. And this is actually a re-release, because it was originally released in, late 2019, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just it's a re-release, but I figured it was relevant enough to both our interests and sort of,
that's fine.
Sort of experimental enough in the right ways that it was worth talking about it. And it's also just a good excuse to talk about this label. They also just put out a record called, by this band Swarming, Primeval Arteries of the Sacred Dead. Okay. Which I was going to cover next week, but I think there's no reason to do 2 back-to-back, but that one sounds pretty good too.
Okay, cool.
So this is we talked last time with Fluids about how Fluids were really successful at integrating, sort of avant electronica from power electronics to breakcore to maybe the most thing that they had was dubstep.
Yeah.
With this kind of mortician mortician death grind stuff. And that this is one of the ways forward for extreme metal, is sort of responding to the gauntlet that's been thrown down by the electronic music guys with their leather jackets and cocaine, right?
Yeah.
And so I think Violes Par Les Cygnes has done a pretty good job of it. And it's an experiment, right? I hope to hear more from it, but I think it's a promising one. And the idea is, again, how do you get the electronic elements going simultaneously with the metal elements, so that it's not just, oh, here's a black metal part, here's a noise part, or the noise part just being sort of garnish on what's obviously a metal record. Right?
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
You're trying to find a way to dovetail them in like a more or less naturalistic way.
Yeah, so I think we had somewhat different opinions on this one, so we'll probably end up debating a little bit. But I figured we better get started with... we could do the part that you want to criticize, and then I'll try to respond to it, or we could lead with the thing that I...
Let's just
thing that I
do them in order so we can give people an idea of what it sounds like.
Yeah, we both talked a lot about the second track. So here's from the beginning of the second track, here's for me what a riff is on this album.
Okay, let's give that a try.
Yeah.
I do really like the that like warbling sub bass hum that comes in halfway through that. That's really cool.
I was more listening to the high end, but yeah. So we talked in connection to the fluids, and we talked briefly about this sort of, this kind of aggressive avant dubstep kind of stuff like Empty Set, who, if you haven't heard, are worth checking out.
And just so people know, what is the official term for that? I've always heard it as like industrial techno. Like, what do you actually call that style?
I think Empty Set's first record, had more four-to-the-floor beats, or at least more sort of dance beats. So it was more industrial techno.
Yeah.
There stuff after that, it just doesn't work like the rhythms aren't really like techno.
Okay.
It's what there was a fusion between techno. Techno had gotten sort of disconnected from a bunch of the cool stuff about music, right? Which happened through sort of corporate raver shit. Not even the EDM stuff, just like corporate rave party music on the one hand, and on the other hand, or anthem trance. And on the other hand, you get kind of arty electronic music, right? Of various kinds, and then there was, like minimal techno was very cool, or dub techno.
Yeah.
And then there was this moment in around 2012 when, a little before then probably, but that's when I picked up on it, when techno started reintegrating with industrial, reintegrating with the aesthetics of kind of metal or post-industrial music, and goth, and at the same time also really responding to the crushing dubstep stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so Empty Set's just kind of part of that nexus, right?
I gotcha.
But those bands, Regis is one of the most successful, is a good example of this. What they're really good at, we talked about last time, is using what you could, I think there's a band called Shaped Noise, one word, but that's a really good way of just terming it.
Yeah.
Is making these kind of melody-like things, or getting melody or riff effects without playing notes, right? Which gets you outside the sort of standard allows you not to be locked into some of the standard riff vocabularies of extreme music.
You're operating purely off frequency, not off like a 12-tone scale.
Yes, it purely off frequency, and timbre is really important, and rhythm, right?
Yeah.
A metal band that does that really well with just guitars is Concrete Winds, who we should talk about sometime.
I've never heard of that. Okay.
They fucking slay. You would love them. Would love them. They're so good. Oh my god. But this has that shape noise quality. It's a very simple melody. If you play that on guitar, or if you play that as a conventional, that is being played on guitar, I think. But it's being played in an electronic way, right? And it's just this... I think that's good. I think that's a simple, small sort of variation within the broader white noise that really comes out. And if you listen closely at the end of that sample, you can hear there's a black metal riff under it. It's a fairly standard black metal riff. It's nothing to write home about. But there's this bass of fuzzed out rhythm guitar that's distant. And then this sort of machinic whining and humming, which I find very successful, and I think approximates things that happened accidentally in some of the best just fried cult shit back in the day.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So let me, I'll get on my thoughts. So let's do my first sample, which is further on in the same song. Mm-hmm. So let's give that a try, and then we can kind of like go back and forth on what we're talking about here.
Distorted drum sound go boom.
That was one of the parts that stuck out to me that I really liked, and I guess my overall thesis of this record is I think that Violes is a better electronic ambient band than they are a black metal band.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose, but death metal guy, don't you think that's exactly the kind of binary they're trying to challenge?
No, because another thing is I've heard a lot of stuff that sounds essentially like this over the past, 15 years or so. Like
the power electronics or the attempt at this kind of fusion?
The attempt at this kind of fusion. And
You're certainly more of a power electronics dude than I am, so I imagine you know.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to bring up, regarding that is because I am like a big power electronics guy. Like my flow chart of music that I care about is we've got extreme metal at the top, and then hip hop, and then noise power electronics. That's kind of like that's my big three.
Yeah, he's actually a member of Death Grips.
Dude, like that.
He's actually this is actually the main guy from Death Grips.
Hey man, ex-military when that came out, man, that was like a big deal.
No, I know you were on top of that before. I knew about them long before they became cool. But I was like, oh yeah, I know them because my cool friend guy told me about them.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up was the idea that similar to how we've had this conversation a couple times about the idea of the corporeal versus spiritual division in metal styles. Mm-hmm. And I think that same thing exists within power electronics itself. And unsurprisingly, the power electronics I really like is much more corporeal. Stuff like White House and Death Pile and Navicon Torture Technologies. This stuff that's just like about like brute human suffering. And then there's other stuff from a more traditionally artistic kind of erudite side.
White House is traditionally artistic. Just throwing that out there.
Traditionally artistic coming from the era that they were, but I could see it being seen as brain dead shit now. I'm just trying to
It's extremely, I'm just saying, like, the art music people all love White House and give them a pass for saying edgy things.
Yeah, which I still don't understand.
I think it's you had to get in at a certain time to get a pass for all these things, right? If you get in before, 1988 or something, right?
Yeah, well, I would say, that's probably a whole discussion in and of itself about how
Dark Throne got in before 2016, right?
I think, there's a whole conversation there about a splitting that occurred after the formative 70s industrial music in the UK. It split off into these different places.
Maybe in the 90s. Yeah.
I would say even in the 80s that split had kind of occurred to a degree.
You start getting sort of establishment noise versus, or not established, you start getting sort of critically endorsed noise versus versus unlicensed noise.
You get art noise versus thug noise.
Yeah.
And I've always been a thug noise guy. Now, this isn't saying there isn't shit from that classier side that I really enjoy. Pedestrian Deposit is an outstanding project and shit like that. But I guess my issue is a lot of the stuff here seems much more self-consciously arty. And I don't necessarily hate that in and of itself, but it means that there is a disconnect between me and the music here. You know what I mean?
I guess, yeah. And I like arty industrial stuff, so I like it. It's one thing, I really like the guitar playing there. So another thing that I think I want to hear more of in BM or BM derived music is kind of out guitar playing or outside guitar playing, right?
Yeah.
Stuff that isn't just locked into riff forms, right? And we talked a lot about that with Oppressive Descent, about how he is, within the standard tremolo style, working towards something much more like flowing classical melody or something, more that isn't just segmented standard riff patterns.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And at the same way, and there's a different way of doing that, which is playing guitar as a noise-making instrument, which weirdly, in a lot of black metal, the noise just comes from the tone.
Yeah.
The noise just comes from the tone, and the guitar player is always sort of almost never improvising, following these kinds of following pretty closely to what's written and to the drums and stuff. I like this idea that this guitarist is using echo and bends and noise effects. Yeah. We talked about that a little bit with Eiffel 1710, that was the best thing on an otherwise rather not that interesting record, right?
Yeah. Quick diversion, since you're talking about kind of art music and kind of out guitar music. You ever listen to any Fred Frith?
No.
Yeah, so a great record for you. After we get off, I'll send you a link and everything. Fred Frith, I believe he was a 1970s experimental musician. He did a record called Guitar Solos with a prepared guitar, and it's most similar to, sonically, mid-era Nurse with Wound, when they were more ambient, but played entirely on a guitar with a ton of effects and everything. Good. It's very cool shit.
I might have heard something... I might have heard that years ago when I was coming down from a drug. It was,
it's an austere experience.
Something like that at least. But the band I was going to mention is Skullflower. A lot of the guitar playing here reminds me of Skullflower. Do you like Skullflower?
I've only heard a little bit of them. I remember basically liking it, but not enough to pursue.
They're sort of at the juncture between thug noise and licensed noise. Yeah. So, just kind of, right now, back in the day, it was this kind of the Stooges via Coil, or the Stooges, and White House or whatever. I think they were on Broken Flag, or part of that scene. And it had this just intense psychedelic kind of, rock, thing with the bass and rock or punk. He went through just a pedal-based phase, and now he's playing guitar music again, and he just releases insanely prolifically on Bandcamp, which is cool.
Yeah.
So this reminds me a little bit of, Skullflower guitar playing over blast beats, or in this case, over these sort of very slow, more industrial drums, and I like that either way.
Okay. So let's since I see you highlighting it in the document, let's check out my next sample, and then I think this will elucidate some of my criticisms a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
You like that? That was a big word for me.
that was yeah. So I thought you were that's really not very thug noise of you.
Oh yeah, I read a lot, so let's give the opening to 5, the final track, a try.
I outed you as literate. So.
Thanks.
So what's your take on that?
So just to clarify for people, when I edit this together, that was actually the first minute of track number 4. I had it mixed up in my notes. So my take on it is... Okay, so I always had this idea to do an experimental project where what I do is I write a 3-minute like raw black metal song with just like a few riffs, and then I slow it down to like 10% speed and I make it a Funeral Tomb EP.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'm saying here is, how different is this structurally from doing a raw black metal sound and overlaying a bunch of noise on top of it? At least in this instance.
Well, I think that's kind of what I wanted it to be.
Really?
Because I think the idea is, again, it's the idea of getting it simultaneously in there so that the noise instruments work as part of the black metal thing.
But But I guess my issue is, like, are they working as part of it? Because what usually happens in these situations, because I've listened to bands like this before, and usually what's happening is you're writing kind of a simple black metal song, and then you're kind of improvising noise over the top. And there's nothing wrong with that juxtaposition necessarily, but can you really say you're doing a fusion when you're just kind of like going in post and just like laying noise over the top of it?
I'm actually not even sure I heard the black metal part there. That to me sounded like one of the more out there noise parts. I couldn't really. It certainly wasn't one of the more engaging moments on the album. I'll give you that. It had this kind of it was sort of in between the blasts and the really doomy parts. It had this kind of vaguer pulse to it.
I think there's a simple buzzing riff there, don da don da don da don da. But you know what I really think is I think I've just heard this record done better as Havohe's Combatant and Premaster.
I was going to say, to me, this is a better version of what Havohe and Profanatica are trying to do.
Oh my god, you think this is better than that?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, we gotta fucking fight IRL, man.
I knew I was going to piss you off, yeah.
Holy shit.
At least from what I remember, it's been a long time, but yeah, I just remember the Combatant and Premaster thing has a lot of just boring kind of white noise stuff, and just sort of fuzz, and his newer ones kind of like that too. And it doesn't sound as seamlessly integrated. I think
Combatant and Premaster might be a top 10 record.
It's one of your favorite albums, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, we've talked about it on the show before. I like where he's going with that album, and I think I like this whole general direction. I might appreciate it more if I re-listen to it more, but to me, I guess a thing that I don't recall him doing on Combatant and Premaster, which I hear here, is he was trying to sort of replace guitars with pedals, right?
Yeah,
basically.
I talked to
really
him,
simple guitar noise.
Well, I talked to Paul one time to get clarification for that. Actually, in real life, we were at a show together, and he had said that what was used on that record was purely just like industrial samples, distorted and overdriven, just sort of like sort of like
cool
tape loops rather than guitar noise.
Yeah. So that's cool. But I think I find he also relies a lot on just like tekka 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 blast beats, which has a certain kind of asceticism to it that I like, right? Mm-hmm. He's got an idea, but to me, it might even be more high concept than this. But to me, like, I like the rhythmic variation and there's something about the drumming that relates it to industrial music, right? There's variation between blasts and more kind of industrial passages, the ones that you like better.
Yeah.
You couldn't expect the riffing to be that good on this album because you'd want the noise to be centered. You'd like, if there were really, if this guy was playing like, I don't know, even like Seigneur Voland riffs under it, it would just be a black metal thing that has some noise over the top. I think like all the hooks and riffs are in the noise, and I agree that the black metal parts are, if you just had them, this would be like a, third tier. A thing I thought about was like, remember that Nice album that we talked about last year?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good album, and a funny thing that it does is it starts the album off kind of to say, this ain't your mama's post-black metal album. It just starts off with that one Beharit riff.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a good gesture on that album, and you hear that a lot here, too, and it's used in the same kind of gestural way. It's just kind of like, this is a sort of baseline black metal riff, but what's happening in relation to it is supposed to supply the interest, I think. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. I like those big, which you might associate this more with spiritual noise. I don't know that the spiritual corporeal neatly maps onto thug versus authorized.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like me flippantly creating a division.
Those are definitely two funny axes to map noise on, for sure. But like with Skullflower or something, it has these big bending feedbacky arcs of guitar sound, and those are on this, and I like those. I like stuff that sounds like, you know what it is? I like stuff that sounds not just like machinery, although that is cool, but like electricity.
I was about to say, you seem to have an affection for this like a hot wire,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that with you. You're into these tones that are just like burning hot energy.
Yes. And it's like you're purely they're not even playing riffs on the guitar. You're just manipulating the energy. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from, because there's a lot of that here.
Yes. And the techno guys do that. Regis or whatever, and people like him, when they play live, they'll often just take a wire, and fuck with the end of the wire, right? Mm-hmm. They'll incorporate this noise-making stuff into the techno.
It's the same philosophy as using contact mics and noise.
No, that's kind of what I meant, I think.
Okay.
I'm technically illiterate. So I want to try to play a moment. Let me try to sell you on this record, at least a little more. This is a moment where I think the blasting comes together with the noise again, and the riff, the guitar, quote unquote, riffing, I think is better even than the sample I played at the beginning.
Okay.
And there's a cool thing. Yeah, let's play it.
All right.
This is off track 3.
Okay, I mean, you can sell me on that because I think I remember that part. That is probably the most distinctly black metal part on the record.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, that to me would be hands down the part where the synthesis is just the best on this, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that would be, I think if the record all sounded like that, I would like it more as a whole. You know?
That, I love, the black metal riff there, you can hear it, and it's, again, just one of those Beherit or Von riffs, right?
Yeah, it's one chord and a bend, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I love bend-based playing, too. That's also part of my energy or hot sound, you know. It's being used almost like a bass there. Some of that crank, 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 the echoing stuff, that sounds more like pedal than guitar. Yeah. You can hear that bending, arcing sound on the guitar. I think the overall feeling is sort of like helicopter takes off in Warhammer 40k. It's,
how many 40k references is that for this podcast?
I try at least one per episode.
And I love it
Talking about Bolt Thrower doesn't count.
And I love it
that's
because
Warhammer 1.
You've never actually played 40k. You just know the lore really well.
I played I've actually played one game of Warhammer Fantasy, which I won hands down when I set my opponent's dwarves on fire. But yeah, no, it was hard to find people my own age to play with, and my parents didn't want me going down to the game store because they were worried that I might end up as a sort of like, you know,
you might end up a fucking
long-haired,
loser.
bearded loser listening to extreme metal, and you know, they didn't. Yeah, they didn't want me to end up as some guy with a fucking ponytail, but I showed them.
So in the end, I don't hate this record, but it's a little too close to a lot of stuff that I've already heard. Just in terms of, like, it seems like a very straightforward black metal noise fusion. And I'm not going to say that they don't have the ability to articulate it into something more interesting. And I'll listen to it, you know, I'll listen to their next record, but I don't think it's here for me yet.
Can you name this is not asked in a sort of like challengey way, but more like for the listeners and for me, what's an example of like somebody who was doing something in this vein before? Because I've heard very raw Mysticum-y stuff that approximates this, but mostly sort of semi-intentionally.
I would say like a big example would be Emit, if you remember them.
You talked about them. I think that's the sort of thing I didn't check out back in the day because of the noise thing, but now I'd probably be interested in it.
Yeah, there was Emit, and there was... I'm trying to think of the other band. Because they did a split with them, a band called Vrolok, who were actually an extremely cool band. Vrolok sounds like this, but with a lot of the white noise stripped away, and it's more like straight Beherit-y black metal mixed with like stretches of very minimal dark ambient. Very good band.
Oh, you know, I think there are a couple different Vroloks, because there's also a new Vrolok from Czech Vrolok. No, it's not Czech Vrolok either.
Yeah, I'm talking about the US Vrolok.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different spelling, but there's flying over there's one who has black metal for black metal soaring ancient ruins, flying above ancient ruins. Oh, sorry, my bad. That's Krolok. Flying above ancient ruins.
So, but yeah, I'd say like for this, like Emit, definitely would like keep things a little more separate. The black metal was very noisy, but then there were obvious like just straight power electronics tracks. And then Vrolok is that very minimal Beherit-inspired black metal with these long stretches of very minimal dark ambient. But then really the shit that sounds like this one-to-one is a lot of just like cassette tape stuff that I listened to and moved past over the years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, we've talked a lot about a few very short albums.
All right, well,
and now we're going to talk a lot about two very long albums.
Yeah, we are. And, all All right, well, we'll take a quick break, be right back, and we'll get into it. All right, so now we get into my hour. So we've got the collaboration between Bell Witch and Aerial Ruin. And I know you're not a huge Funeral Doom guy, but you pretty much like Bell Witch, right?
Well, you sort of reluctantly, you sort of persuaded me to like the last one, to like Mirror Reaper.
Really?
I did not. Yeah, I did not like it at first. You said, no, it's really good. I said some critical things about the riffing or whatever. You were like, yeah, no, but it's about this other thing. I listened to it again.
Oh, yeah, the drummer dying, yeah.
Yes, well, of course it's about that. Yeah, and yeah, that sucks. And, it's great. It's good that, they were able to, come back from that and be successful. That's, all respect to that. And I think that there was very soulful playing on it that won me over.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of bass on it?
Bell Witch is actually bass only. I believe he uses a 6-string bass, but the way it's produced is very guitar-like.
Good. So there was this really soulful bass playing, especially towards the end of it. And I realized, it's not really about the riffs. It's this kind of melody thing that he keeps obsessively soloing on, basically. I liked that.
There's a sense of kind of vamping in almost like a blues fashion.
Yeah, it's supposed to be very intuitive. So you sold me on Mirror Reaper. I never listened to it again, but I was like, okay, actually this is emotionally intense and has something musically going on.
I would say if you go back a record, Forefathers, my favorite one, that is a legitimately pretty excellent Funeral Doom record.
Yeah. I think you're usually the more difficult to please guy on this show, but boy, have I got some things to say about this one.
Oh no, this record mostly sucks.
This sucks ass.
This is bad.
I hate this, and this is what I thought Mirror Reaper would be. And this is, can I start, or would you like to, you lead off, and then I'll start going.
Okay, well, I guess I kind of ruined it, so I guess I kind of ruined it by saying that this album basically sucks.
We do that all the time.
Alright, so real quick background, just because I know the sort of autists that listen to our show. So, I am a huge Funeral Doom guy. It's one of my favorite styles of metal. And I was suspicious about Bell Witch at first, because they are very kind of hipster popular. I'm not sure.
Indeed.
I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what about it musically.
Seattle, Washington.
Are they from Seattle? I thought they were from Oregon.
Yeah. Well, they might have been from Oregon first. People move
yeah.
between them all the time. It's a migratory corridor. Remember, It's not America, it's Cascadia. It's an ecosystem.
Okay, yeah, so it looks like, Seattle. I thought they were from Oregon for some reason. So, and it's, there's nothing that Bell Witch does which is ostentatiously different from other Funeral Doom bands, but
there's nothing they do that's recognizably Funeral Doom.
Really? You think so?
Well, at least on this album, for sure.
No, this album is different.
Maybe earlier.
I'm talking about the band as a whole.
Okay, fair enough, yeah.
Even me as a Funeral Doom fan, I'm very suspicious of big Funeral Doom bands that pop up. Like, I remember back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, it was Ahab, who I always thought were mediocre.
Yeah, I remember just seeing, it's a certain gimmick, man. Like, I actually, call me crazy. I think I wouldn't have copped to this. I think I probably had a different position 5 or 6 years ago, but I think Mastodon's pretty good, or I think some of that Mastodon stuff was good. Once they wrote their Moby Dick album, don't make your whole fucking band about Moby Dick.
Yeah, I think it was the second Mastodon record.
Mastodon owns that now.
Well, anyway, what I'm just saying this to basically say, I do like Bell Witch as a band. That being said, this is pretty bad. This is definitely the worst thing that Bell Witch has done. So this is a collaboration between them and a one-man project called Aerial Ruin, which I looked it up. I think he describes himself as like neo-folk, but that's not correct.
Apparently he's collaborated with them before. Was he doing the vocals? I think he's the guy doing the cleans on this, right?
Yeah, he's doing the cleans, and I assume he's doing the acoustic stuff.
Yeah, I think he is. And was he doing cleans on Mirror Reaper too?
Possibly, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think they collaborate with him regularly. Here, I'll click on it.
Well, anyway, so Aerial Ruin does acoustic guitar music with clean vocals. And this is...
Yes.
This is an attempt to fuse those two styles, and it doesn't really work. I think there's interesting ideas that are worthy of exploration on this, but I don't think the execution is ever working, really.
I would describe it, sort of, okay, yeah, he did do additional vocals and lyrics on Murder Reaper. All right, they should just make him part of the band, honestly, right? Yeah. But, like, why not? He's your bro. Throw him a bone. But, it's, but the, yeah, so I think objective, there's a sort of compositional ambition to this album that you can recognize.
Yeah.
There are certain kinds of moves on it that are kind of sophisticated, right? Like it's really built on one kind of theme. And the interesting thing they do with the acoustic music is that it starts off with this acoustic stuff, which we don't need to, you could just begin the album and you'll hear it. Mm-hmm. It starts off with this kind of rockish, it's really sort of acoustic. It's a vocal melody carried over chords, and it's a very distinctly non-metal melody. Yeah,
and that's something I was going to talk about heavily, yeah.
Yeah, and that melody sort of supplies all of... And in some sense, that's interesting, sure, because you don't hear things like that. It has this sort of intuitive kind of melody that only really makes sense if you sing it quality. Mm-hmm. But that provides pretty much all the thematic material for the whole album, which is compositionally ambitious, but it's also, I think there's some sort of saying that, there's a thin reed that you can hang much weight on. Mm-hmm. This is a thin, delicate, slight, wispy reed on which a great ponderous bulk of a concept album has been hung, and boy, does it not hold.
There is a very limited supply of melodic ideas on this record.
And they all, okay. So let's give them an example of the sort of, yours are the default sort of acoustic stuff on Heaven Torn Low 1.
Yeah, so let's get this.
Just everything on this fucking album has like qualifiers. So this is Stygian Bough Volume 1. I think that's a reference to the Golden Bough, which I can appreciate, but it's Volume 1. Great. So here comes Volume 2. Then we get Heaven Torn Low 1, parentheses, The Passage. Heaven Torn Low 2, parentheses, The Toll. Prelude. We need a prelude to the last track. This album is staggering under the weight of its own prog rocker bloat.
Oh, right? Definitely.
So let's go.
Let's give this a try real quick. And this is a good example of the sort of acoustic stuff you're going to hear, which probably makes about half the record.
It's that sad little melody. Oh, here it is again.
You see, I don't mind this part. So
there's nothing intrinsically bad about that part, right? It's just and there's nothing go for it. Say what you're gonna say.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say. So I did manage to see on Bell Witch's description that. The Doom duo Bell Witch fully integrate with dark folk elegist Eric Mogridge, which is whatever promo shit. I'm not going to dwell on that, but
we did. Their promo person knows not to use the word neo-folk, right?
I wasn't even going to say that. I was going to say the fact that calling it dark folk. This doesn't,
even dark folk is, a stretch.
It doesn't sound like folk, what I said in our notes.
Yes, it doesn't actually sound like real folk at all.
What it really sounds like is 60s singer-songwriter stuff like Simon and Garfunkel. Or some, like, snatches of early Bob Dylan or Neil Young. That's the primary influence.
The vocal sounds like he's got this kind of thin, nasally thing, which I don't know. I don't think that's intrinsically wrong or whatever. In another musical context, it might work, and it does have that kind of clarity. But yeah, I heard the Neil Young thing for sure. But Neil Young doesn't play guitar like that. The guitar is
it's a pastiche of different ideas.
It's a denatured guitar line. It's just arpeggios.
Yeah.
And you can do cool things with that. But yeah, I mean, Simon and Garfunkel honestly sound more folky than this, right? At least they've got their sort of lush version of Scarborough Fair or whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, all of it is ultimately like 2 degrees away from folk. But
yes.
But this intrinsically sounds more like that than it does what we think of as folk music.
Especially as it figures in metal, right?
Yeah. I will say, just for the record, I will say, I think this is interesting. I think it's, I was not anticipating this at all. I'm not going to say it's always executed extremely well, but I appreciate just how weird the influence is.
They took the gambit seriously, right?
Yeah, they played it straight.
I might give this album like an objective B or low B plus, and just say that as far as my taste, this is like a D minus.
Yeah.
It's I think, it really sounds like singer-songwriter music. And now I'll get into the more. So to me, here's where the vocals, the clean vocal folky parts really don't work. Let's go a little bit later in this song, which is Heaven Torn Low 1, The Passage.
All right, let's give that a try. Yeah, that's not great.
Oh, God, no. So you can't keep doing that. There's a vocal writing problem here, which might have to do with how he's trying to fit to the metal on the skate, but, the falls, that's a forced vocal. You can hear him pushing the air there, trying to draw that out. It's similar to where Katy Perry's, when her songwriters can't finish a line, they just stagger her voice, or they have her add sort of pointless melisma. All sorts of pop artists do that now, right?
So you can first Katy Perry reference on Terminus.
Oh, dude, it's getting worse. So it's this sort of, and if you do it once, right? Maybe if you do it again, you want to change it up and have it be this improvised, right? It's imitating, what it's imitating is the sort of free-flowing, embellished nature of folk singing, right? So like Irish singers will riff on melody, right? But if you do it again, do it differently, or maybe not in such a forced way. I think we started on the second rep already, so there were 4 fucking reps of that. So it sounds lifeless and sterile and like it's been cut and pasted. You can sort of do that, a version of that sort of cut and paste repetition with black metal vocals, because if you're dealing with a certain kind of stripped down, punky, dark throny thing, just because it's kind of like, here's 4 of this part.
Yeah.
But to do something that should be based at his best, he's got this kind of organic, singy melody thing, so it should work like that. Here's my other thought, right? Not only is this not folk, it just sounds like rock, and like rock that sucks ass. It sounds like the soft parts of 70s hard rock albums.
Yeah.
Or prog rock. And now, like, here's a good band that this is trying to sound like. At the very end of this, there's that descending motif on the guitar, right?
Yeah.
The do-do-do-do-do-do-do, this sort of noirish kind of bluesy thing.
Yeah.
Well, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You by Led Zeppelin. Or any number of other Led Zeppelin songs that depend on that.
Well, it's also interesting that you said 70s rock, because I was going to say that one of the big things that this seems to be aping is a band we've mentioned on a previous episode, which is Pallbearer. And this is a very bad version of what Pallbearer does. And slowed down even further, obviously.
I'll come back to Pallbearer in a second. But this is, the 70s rock thing. And it's like, look, if you're gonna imitate a 70s rock band, do not imitate recognizable riffs by one of the greatest bands of all time. Right? And that just puts you in the place of all the other shit 70s prog rock, wanker, kind of pseudo hard rock bands from the time. That, this album sort of triggers all the sort of punk assumptions that are still underlying how I think about songwriting.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, just honestly, fuck that shit, It's the whole album feels like a hard rock album in Funeral Doom drag, basically, is what I wrote.
I mean, would it even be a fucking hard rock album?
No, it wouldn't be a hard rock album. It would be soft rock. Charitably, they're going for Blue Oyster Cult, right? Who are a cool band. Let me talk about the vocals a little more, too. So thin, reedy vocal in a Funeral Doom context. The person who nails that is Aaron Stainthorpe from My Dying Bride, right? Everyone knows he doesn't have great range. He is a very expressive voice. It always sounds like he's on the verge of just ending it.
Another band that nails that is Warning from the UK.
That's a band I don't know well enough. Are those one of those? They're like Trouble, right?
Yeah, Warning is more like trad doom, but very, very musically developed.
Cool.
Actually, extremely good. Like, very cool shit. I'll show it to you.
I remember I heard some Trouble back in the day, and I was like, well, this is actually really good.
Yeah, Trouble's tight.
So it can work, but here, the voice is a little Simon and Garfunkel. More than that, you can, charitably it's Neil Young, charitably it's Don't Fear the Reaper. What does it actually sound like? Death Cab for Cutie. Literally sounds like Ben Gibbard. And, I was forced to concede. Yeah,
basically.
You couldn't escape that fucking music back in the day, and so I was forced to, listen to it, right? And so you just hear it piped in, or it's in, it's on you're changing stations on a rock radio, and you're in the car, and
and soul meets body.
Tinku, tinku, tink, tink. And the guitar work is like that, too, except not as elaborate. The thing about Death Cab for Cutie is I was like, I have to concede that he's a talented songwriter. He just uses his powers for evil, right? It's
there's some Smiths buried in there,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, he can write these really long melodies or whatever, but his songs are awful. His lyrics have all this sort of creepy beta male shit, sort of like the guy always sort of thirstily following the manic pixie dream girl and sort of hoping that someday she'll surrender.
Someday she'll show me her boobs.
No, he literally has a song like that. I think it's like, someday I will possess your heart. I will grow on you, right?
Dope.
But so Death Cab for Cutie sucks. This sounds like Death Cab for Cutie. You can never do that on a metal album.
That's fair. Well, speaking of...
I'm sure that this songwriter stuff doesn't all sound like Death Cab for Cutie, but here it really does.
Well, speaking of this being a metal album, let's get to the parts of this that sound more substantially metal. So,
sure.
It's interesting that we both took a passage apiece from two of the same songs.
Yes, that's actually true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We've never done that before. So this next one is from.
Wow, it's like our souls are moving in harmony. Tinkle, tink, tink, tink.
Is that the Postal Service? Or?
It's like Death Cab. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Death Cab for Cutie. It's not a quote. I was just riffing.
Oh, okay. I can't tell. I mean, you know that shit better than I do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is one. This is off the last track, which is probably I mean, as far as it goes, probably the best track on the album.
It is. Go for it.
So this is off The Unbodied Air. So do we want to let's do your sample first because it's earlier.
Okay. Yeah. So,
that makes sense.
To me, this is literally the only good part on the album. It is, in The Unbodied Air. So, and I just want to say also about how this album is structured.
Yeah.
To even give this album a B or a B plus, you have to buy in to the ambitious structural conceit. And so if you get around to the sprawling 19-minute last track, you're going to hear some of the themes from the beginning fulfilled and things sort of echoed. And great, you just have to get through the passage and the toll, and you have to get through the prelude. And then finally, you get to hear the song that the rest of the album was written as a sort of afterthought to. Right?
All right, so let's listen to your part of The Unbodied.
Yeah.
Honestly, we can skip over my sample just because it's just a fucking extension of the same idea, basically.
Well, that melody comes in. The sad little melody comes in.
Well, they've heard the sad little melody already. Who gives a shit?
Exactly. This this is the spiraling arpeggio version of it, right? For those who haven't heard, do 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 do.
So one of the biggest problems with this record, as it is most collaboration style things, is that it's not a collaboration. It's Ariel Ruin providing interludes and intros and outros to bad Bell Witch songs.
Except that the bad Bell Witch songs are written around the bad intros and outros.
Yeah, I'm
true, almost sure he is literally the core of the album.
Yeah, it does, that's more accurate. It does feel like Bell Witch is assembled around the acoustic stuff.
Yes.
And I don't even, I wouldn't even say that would necessarily be a problem if these songs were if they were half as long as they are.
Or if they were good.
Yeah, obviously, but we can't, I would say even with the current product, if they were half as long as they are, it would at least be acceptable. I wouldn't listen to it again, but it would be okay versus being like a grueling fucking experience.
Yeah, so, my God, this was grueling. I dreaded listening. I didn't get to The Unbodied Air until today, and I dreaded listening to it.
You're the one who suggested we do this fucking record.
No, and then I didn't think you were going to, and then you were like, let's do it. No, it's, I listened to it enough to get my samples, and then I listened to it today, and I was like, okay, there's one good part. It was, this is the one good part because there's some good sort of out guitar playing feedback stuff that reminds me of Angelic Process or Nadia.
Yeah, that's something that popped up because it popped up in our last samples too. That feedback swelling, that's cool. Or maybe a synth or something. It's hard to tell.
I think maybe both, but
yeah,
it's cool. It's a nice little swarm or swirl of sound. It's organic.
Also, by the way, the Funeral Doom parts of this aren't even heavy. They're nowhere near as heavy as the shit that you heard off Mirror Reaper or Forefathers.
No, they're just this sort of variations on the sad little melody played high on the frets on the bass. And yeah, there's nothing heavy about the riffs. There's growls once on this album. Way in the background.
It's on like the first track, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is what happens. Hang on, I'm going to briefly break this to, there's a cat that really needs to be let out of a room. Give me just a second.
Okay.
You want to get the hell out, don't you, Mom? All right. This to me is what happens when a band starts reading the reviews of them by the metal media. This is what happens when you start huffing your own farts.
I'm not going to go that far. I think these guys are coming at it pretty straight up. Like, it's not good, but I think their heart is in the right place. You know what I mean?
No, I don't necessarily mean, I don't mean like corrupted or whatever. It's obviously, if anything, this music is painfully earnest. But, like Death Cab for Cutie earnest.
Yeah.
But more, not so much that they're trying to do what people want from them, but if you read too many reviews of a certain kind you start to sort of, and it might, who knows, we both obviously are interested in metal criticism, so it's not necessarily about reviews, but like, you have a band, people get an idea of your band, they get an idea of what makes your band good. Often that idea is very different from what actually makes your band good.
Yeah.
And what music journalists really like, or sort of people who sort of only half listen to music really like, are bells and whistles. Right? Extras that you can easily pick out of the album. It's not just Funeral Doom, it's Funeral Doom with folk influences.
No, because I was going to say, it's like, I think that one of the issues is, I think this is Bellwitch trying to cater, I'm not even going to say that.
You agree with me.
I agree with you in essence.
I don't think they're bad dudes. There are some bands that have this kind of popularity to them. Yeah, I think kind of just these people are hacks. These aren't hacks.
I'm trying to narrow it down to, I'm sure that Bellwitch is aware that they have a fan base that is split between these kind of like hipster Pitchfork and Vice readers and guys who just like Funeral Doom who happen to like Bellwitch. And I think they were attempting... I
was surprised to hear you liked them. And then I was like, oh, he likes Funeral
Exactly.
Doom.
No, I that's the thing, is like, I was very suspicious of Bellwitch, but those first few albums are really very good fucking albums. And I won't, like, pull any punches. If something is just, like, hipster bullshit and it sucks, I'll tell you.
Sure,
but no, those are good records. So I think in this case, this was them attempting to, like, punch further into that hipster audience, when in actuality, I bet most of the people who were buying their fucking records and t-shirts were metalheads who loved Funeral Doom,
And certainly probably the core, that has to be the core of your audience if you're a metal band. They're trying to punch through to NPR more, right? And it's
I mean, I can't even say that. I am sure, I mean, we can already tell, they're friends with Aerial Ruin. They're friends with the guy from that. They probably... And you know what? I listened to... Actually, in preparation for this, I listened to some Aerial Ruin on its own, and it's much better on its own.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
kind of what
music.
I assumed. Yeah, it's just like decent singer-songwriter music.
I think this is just a... I think this is just a bad idea between friends. You know what I mean? Which can happen.
Some friends got together, they smoked some weed, and they came up with a bad idea. When has that happened before?
I do music, and you're my best friend, and you do music. Let's do an album together. And it makes perfect sense at the time, and it just ends up sucking because you're good friends, but you do completely different things.
And maybe, and if you want to do it, make him a member of the band and do something more with that, I mean, I think... To me, I just want to say also, just reflect, this is much less about the band itself than about the place it has, right? That's kind of what I'm thinking more about. Again, I don't like, sometimes, I mean, especially when you're young and you're spurging out about metal, you sort of attribute things to musicians that are like unfair or whatever. I don't mean to be doing that here. I really hate this record, and I really hate the place, and I really hate the place and culture that it occupies. But that's kind of what I'm interested in. They're coming at it from whatever solid place. You can almost always assume, right? But it's what's funny to me about Bellwitch. I think Bellwitch is a good way for me to delineate something that I hate about metal criticism, and that maybe is something we are trying to push back against with this show, which is the promo cycle, right?
Yeah.
There are always certain kinds of bands. There's certain bands and there are certain kinds of bands that are going to make their way into this sort of upper realm of things that everyone covers and will always be on the year-end list, and everyone will say the same things about, right? Yeah. Because the metal media is just like the rest of the media.
No,
they're on message.
I haven't read a review of this record, but I assume they're all glowing.
Exactly. So here's where... So here, do you remember the very brief period of time, maybe 6 months, when at that point The Onion had totally gone to shit, but Clickhole was funny?
Yeah, right after it got bought out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Somehow, maybe all the good writers switched to Clickhole and then had the freedom to do something for 6 months, you know? But there was a really good article, I think by them. It could have been... Yeah, I think it was them. That had a picture of, I only remember who this is because of this article, but it had a picture of this girl, Meghan Trainor, on it, this pop star.
Oh, fucking Meghan Trainor.
Just some C-list pop star. And it said, under it, "Hello, I am the new person you have to know about now." And Bellwitch has always felt to me like the new band you have to know about now. I remember when they released their first 1 or 2 records, I just would see it on Metal Archives. It's like, oh, I saw the cover, I assumed, okay, this is probably kind of hipstery doom metal, not for me. And the reviews of it that I remember seeing weren't that positive. And then, so I just, I didn't think too much of it. And then suddenly it was like, this is the band you must know about.
Yeah. But to make it clear, I wouldn't blame Bellwitch for that.
No, I agree.
I'm just trying to moderate us being assholes.
No, I know. I often do that with you. I didn't mean that. I wasn't giving you shit either. But I think for me, the real issue is how people react to stuff like this, and then how the reactions inevitably feed back into how a band perceives their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, it's a loop of bad ideas.
Yeah, it's like if you do something and you get positive feedback for the bad parts of it, there's a very good chance you'll follow that positive feedback. And if you don't, there's a very good chance you stop being popular. Right? I had a really depressing experience the other day that's related to this. So I live in a town that used to be somewhat cool and is now really lame. I was walking down the street the other day, and just my sudden instant perception is I see a guy in an Exploited shirt. Now, back in the day, living in different places or whatever, everyone knows the Exploited is a shit tier, hot topic sort of, street punk band, right? They were part of the original UK 82, but they were always the dumbest and worst. However, just seeing an Exploited shirt on anyone, and I was in a good mood, so I was just I just gave him a nod. I said, "Oh, cool, nice shirt," or whatever.
It still activates your elements.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just hey, at least there's that, right? And then as my perception solidifies, I see that this person, he just completely, he's got his, he either blanks me or doesn't even notice me. Doesn't even recognize me as the kind of person who attempts to communicate with him. And as I realize what this person is, he's a middle-aged dork riding a scooter with his headphones on, and, you know, a little backy-packy. And I'm like, my God, that's sad. Oh, Jesus, you know? So, okay, so that guy's got an Exploited shirt somehow. And then I still in the same area, I sort of, I'm going to find my girlfriend, and I walk past a group of dudes, you know, sort of like just nerdy dudes, probably, you know, maybe like programmers or something. And, there's this nerdy dude in a, you know, sort of stereotypical nerdy Asian dude, right? Mm-hmm. In a, white shirt that could have said anything on it, right? It could have said, like, you know, name of designer, stupid little graphic here, right? It said pallbearer. And I was like, end my life. End it now. Hurry down, Comet. Fire giants, light this world aflame. Oh man. So it's like that kind of thing. It's this whole sort of, it's weird, you know, there are all these spheres of metal now that just have nothing to do with metal anymore. And I'm afraid that this album really sort of steps into that sphere of just the metal you have to know about now, which has nothing to do with metal. There's certainly nothing to do with the actual extreme metal scene, right? It's just default rock music for people now.
Yeah, pretty much.
And maybe that's fine. I mean, better that than indie rock, better that than, you know, post-grunge butt rock. But
I don't know if it's better, but...
Yeah, fair enough. No, would I rather listen to this than Stone Temple Pilots? It's a hard question.
No, Stone Temple Pilots is way better than this, dude.
Yeah, no, it's true. Even
fucking Core is a good record, dude.
Chains.
Or Soundgarden.
That riff
Alice in
sucks
Chains is better, and Soundgarden is better.
Soundgarden's fantastic, man. Soundgarden's a great band.
All right, so I think
good too, yeah.
I think everyone's got the idea. This album fucking blows. So let's take a break and come back.
This album blows, and we like Alice in Chains.
This album blows. We like Alice in Chains, and we'll be back with another Funeral Doom record that I think I could safely say we both consider much better. All right, so last record of the night, the Funeral Orchestra with Negative Evocation Rites. And as far as I know, you weren't familiar with these guys before now?
Not at all. It's one of those band names that's kind of generic, so if I've seen it, I've passed over it. I remember Evocation Rite is the name of a song on one of those Ross Bay bands that came out a couple of years ago. That also had a very generic name, but wasn't bad. This is, I really liked this.
I was going to ask you, like, what your feelings were on the record, but
a phrase you like a lot is picking, you know, some sort of band and saying, oh, you know, this is what X, this other band is what X should be to me, or whatever. This is, you know, it's like, this is what I would like to hear when people talk about Sun O or whatever. Right?
Okay. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, like real ritual music.
Yeah, I mean, I've softened on Sun a little bit, you know, just because I think you can just listen to it as drone music and forget the idea that it's supposed to have something to do with metal.
Yeah, I like their first few records.
Yeah, I remember I knew a guy who was so autistic, he's just sped the songs up for me at high frequency, and I was like, okay, they're kind of our riffs there, although there's no real relation between the chords or anything. So I you know, it's I'm softer on Sun than I used to be, but I still think they're pretty Emperor Has No Clothes. The new one, Life Metal, seems promising. Haven't listened to it. But this band really has a lot of tone, right? Echoing tone, sort of frying, spreading out tone. It has a lot of space, and it's very minimal. But the cool things it has that Sun doesn't have are things like drums and vocals and riffs, and like parts that are heavy. And unlike a lot of other bands like this, like, you know, other bands doing the kind of arty extreme of Funeral Doom or whatever. Like, remember Monarch that got hyped a lot or whatever?
Oh, I actually like Monarch a lot.
But it just hangs there, man. They have these songs, right? It's just like, dong, and the drummer hits the tom and the bass at once.
Monarch is way further in that drone direction than this is.
Yeah, that's true. This is maybe close to Funeral Doom. But basically, this sounds more like that droning stuff than it does, than like Skepticism does, right? Or than Thurgathon does. This has a real metal and melodic dimension to it that makes it more compelling to me.
I also thought this was interesting just because, as one of your favorite bands, this is the guitarist and vocalist on this is the drummer from Sacramentum, which I thought was very interesting. I did not realize that at all originally.
Yeah, let me see what else he's in. Let's see.
He's in Rune Magic. He's in a ton of shit.
Oh, yeah. No, and then he's also, Rune Magic. Yeah, this is a whole group of related bands. And then in Rune Magic, one of these people, I was just talking with you off air about, let's see if it's here. No, never mind. No. Incorrect. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, the Sacramentum connection is really cool. And this is so musically different, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and it's so not a drummer band. There's a certain genre of thing that I call a drummer band that's like Sunopfer or Rites of the Gringelade, which is just like the drummer gets really good at guitar, like better at guitarists than most guitarists, and then writes these just totally fucking ADHD riffs and just goes apeshit under them on the kit. Yeah, and I it's kind of impressive but not very enjoyable. This is like the opposite of that.
Yeah. Although I do I actually like Rites of the Gringelade a lot.
I think Rites of the Gringelade is cool. It's just, you know what it is? I'm a different kind of ADHD.
I gotcha.
So it doesn't appear, It's,
man. So, real quick, let me throw out a sample just so everyone can get an idea of what this sounds like. This is off the opening track, Negative Evocations. That is nice and spooky, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the slowest Mysteris Dom Satanas riff I've heard.
It kind of is, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. Yeah, we both think this band sounds a lot like black metal, so I think that's kind of how the Sacramentum thing is coming in indirectly.
Yeah,
what were you comparing it to specifically?
Well, I was comparing it, honestly, this is not Funeral Doom as we think of Funeral Doom, where it's concentrated around very heavy but very defined riffs.
Mm-hmm.
This is Funeral Doom as ambient ritual music. And I think sonically this has much more to do with a couple bands I mentioned earlier in this episode, Demon Sea and Havohe. Like, Demon Sea, I would say, is the biggest comparison here. If you take Demon Sea and you break all those tremolo riffs down to just giant held chords, you would get riffs very similar to what you hear throughout this record.
Yeah, that makes sense. And where a lot of Funeral Doom relies on sort of melody, consonant harmony, this has notes of that, like this sample we just played, but a lot of the riffs on here are just really unpleasant, like in a good way. Like, we've talked about how, there's perhaps an excess of pleasant metal right now.
Yeah.
The best example of that being like Uana or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the worst, that's the furthest in that direction, but this is truly unpleasant for a lot of it. And in the way that, like, if you like metal, you should be into.
This is very... I'll get into it a little bit later, but this is beholden to a style of funeral doom that has basically disappeared.
Yeah. They use the melodic element sparingly, and because it's extremely minimal, anytime they make a little shift like that lift you hear...
It has an outsized importance. Yeah.
Yes, and that little sort of... Those sort of minor chord things, that really is so much like Euronymous' guitar playing. Just this kind of... Because it's coming out of this base of more dissonant, grinding stuff, and then there's just this lift, and he plays with the bass, and he slides a little bit, and then it's back into the sort of grinding stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I think the Mayhem thing is big for this too. And I think
there's a tradition of second wave black metal really coming through here.
And parts of second wave black metal that have mostly been ignored in recent years.
Yeah, that's true. Like the sort of marginal parts of it that are not the parts that you think about when you think about those bands.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So I picked one from, I think we both picked from that Negations 1. I mean, obviously there are only so many tracks on it.
There's only 4 songs. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in Negations 1, here's just a cool sequence that shows more of what this band has going on at a riffing level. A thing I look for in an album like this is, as I said before, I generally don't like the music to just hang there.
Yeah.
In a way that the more... so I look for something to have some kind of internal momentum to it, even if it's really slow.
Yeah.
And this has a lot of nice, just slow drive to it. So let's go to Negations 1.
All right. Let's get...
Yes, yucky indeed, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's like that inflection and that last riff there where it's like just kind of alternating between like a 1 and a 0, but there's chord shapes going on within that. It could just be like a flat 1-0 thing, but no, they're varying the chord shapes within that paradigm. There's that little bit of extra effort and investment to this that really gives it like a breadth that you don't hear in a lot of Funeral Doom records.
And what I liked in that sequencing is you can almost... There were parts of this album, I think with my other sample too, where you can really headbang to it. And like, it almost has a... at times it almost has a kind of moshy heaviness to it.
Yeah, you can imagine
super slow time.
You can imagine this as live music much more than you can most Funeral Doom
Yes,
stuff.
Yeah, I would love to see this band live, actually.
Dude, I can only imagine what that would be like. You're issued a black robe at the door. You know?
Everyone looks weird at you when you windmill. So, really slow windmill. It's that shit is... That has a good sort of compressive interaction between those two nasty parts. And then again, you get that other Mayhem lift. And the other thing I like about this album in general is there's really good drum playing. He's not doing the drums, right?
No, he's just playing guitar and doing vocals.
Yeah, but he definitely knows a good drummer. Let's see. Yeah, we don't know who the drummer is. He's Priest 3. And the drummer is playing drums like a melodic instrument. And they supply a lot of interest here. The best example I can think of for that, I might have read a good music critic point this out. I might have figured it out on my own. I can't remember. But the drums on Joy Division records, especially Closer, there are riffs being played on the drums because he's exploiting the tonal qualities and differences between the different drums. Yeah, so it fills in some space here, that's going while the riffs are going too. So there's never any sense that the parts are separated out in some ineffective way.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. So let me get to another sample real quick, where off the same song, Negation's one, and I'm going to talk about some of the big influences that I detect on this one.
I didn't notice that one the first time through, but that is a really heavy riff.
That is, I describe that as hilariously evil. You know?
Yes, yeah.
Oh man, that's so, god damn, that is just really, really sinister feeling.
And yeah, it is a great sort of beyond melody quality, right? That's just a pattern.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful pattern.
Yeah, it's and this is where I wanted to get into how this band has changed in 17 years. I say band. I don't think they really... they've played live shows, but I don't think they really operate as a band. They bring it back when they want to record something. You know what I mean? Something that people don't really appreciate. Yeah, people don't appreciate that in the metal scene. It's like you bring something back, you put it down. It's not like an active thing. But there's a sense that in almost 20 years, this is a band that's seriously updated, because the first Funeral Orchestra album is very it's about brutally heavy funeral doom riffs, plus just a hint of Black Sabbath, and a real sense of groove, the idea of funeral doom as body music. And here they've updated it with something that I've really wanted to talk about since the beginning of this show, which is the torture doom movement of the mid-2000s.
Ah, yes. The torture doom movement of the mid-2000s.
Fuck off.
No, I just know you love that shit.
Yeah, I do. And by torture doom, I'm talking about bands like...
I use the word stenchcore unironically.
That's true. So so we're fair. I'm talking about bands like Wormphlegm, Funeralium, Bunker, Planet AIDS. A lot of these bands that were affiliated with the quickly destroyed Coma Works or Soma Works record label. Senthil, 100 other bands that did a demo or an EP and then disappeared. It's a phenomenal style of music that has unfortunately been forgotten. It was very cool for a while, and then it just kind of evaporated in thin air. But there's a distinct sense that the Funeral Orchestra here has derived a lot of their ideas from that scene, in that kind of like swaying, slide-heavy tremolo riffing, which is something you would hear all over Wormphlegm, for instance.
I like the swaying quality, for sure. That riff sounded like a very slow pendulum.
Yeah, and that's something that Wormphlegm would do a lot on their one full length in the Tomb of the Ancient King, as well as like most of these other bands. This idea of like, how do we do a tremolo riff but it feels slower, that it feels heavier, and they did it through those slides, those bends, these slight adjustments to it, even while they're holding a single note for a very long time. So I thought that was really interesting, the idea that these guys come back 20 years later and have updated and kind of recombined ideas from what happened in their absence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is really rare to hear, comeback bands effectively updating.
Yeah.
I think, something I would like to hear is a new record from Sacramentum or Dawn. Speaking of which, just free associating here. It's
Sacramentum is like back together, aren't they?
Yes, Dawn has nominally been working on a new album since I heard of them, so I assume he's kind of stuck in Chinese democracy mode.
I gotcha.
It's I'm sure that if he ever actually releases it, it will be like really, really good. But yeah, it sounds like he's just got to let go and probably get the band's lineup firm again.
Yeah.
Because with music like that, right, that's why people play stuff that sounds like Sargeist and Satanic Warmaster now, and not this kind of melodic black metals. Like, to play like Dawn or Sacramentum, you need a full band of relatively talented musicians.
Yeah. You can't just, like, fake it on your own.
Yeah, and, because I'm sure these guys all still know each other, so it's like a matter of getting those guys together.
Yeah.
It's, alright, so, so I have one more sample on this, and my note is just extremely unpleasant riff into massive sequence. I would say as far as just sort of big moments on this album, honestly, re-listening to it now, all of these are big moments, but this I think is kind of the climax moment of the album for me, and this is a real just sort of like chest beating kind of, sort of subterranean troglodyte kind of riff.
I'll get into that on this next part. So let's listen to this real quick.
Okay, so that's a beautiful riff, right?
Yeah. There's
that bend is just like, that's just like hope getting crushed.
This is a remarkably, especially just like for nowadays Funeral Doom is, there's a real important distinction between Funeral Doom that is hopeless versus that which is just kind of like sad, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this is definitely hopeless, malignant funeral doom, you know?
Yeah, it says negative evocation, right? So they're trying to summon something that ain't good. This is kind of you really need to summon Cthulhu, and you completely understand what Cthulhu is going to do to you, but the principle of the thing matters.
I guess I really like the quality of this record where it's minimalist but highly detailed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
that's, I think,
like,
some of the best music.
It's very, like, daring in a way, where it would be easy to... For instance, I really like the production on this record. I love how flattened and kind of, like, 70s inspired it is.
It's strangely warm, but that only makes it heavier. The guitar tone is pleasant to listen to, but also just really heavy.
Yeah, this is not like
dense.
This is not super down-tuned. I think this is I think the guitars on this are only like in D or C, something like that. It's not this
C, right?
Yeah, it's not this like gargantuanly heavy thing that a lot of funeral doom bands go for it. And even the distortion on the guitars is more of like a 70s fuzz thing than it is like some super overdriven metal shit.
It gets the heaviness from the songwriting.
Absolutely.
And in that sense it is like Thurgathon, right?
Yeah, Thurgathon is another record. Stream from the Heavens is a record that is very thin and very minimal from a production standpoint, but it still conveys a sort of heaviness that's nothing close to anything else.
And them and Skepticism, the early Skepticism, like this band, also kind of wrote riffs in a more black metal way, although very different from the way black metal bands were writing them at the time.
Yeah. I would say Thurgathon is probably like closer to black metal in certain ways. Skepticism's sort of riffcraft and songwriting is so alien from anything in metal.
I don't think so. I guess I just don't hear it that way. We've talked about this before, but I think they released thoroughly remixed version of
Stormcrow Fleet.
Stormcrow Fleet, yeah. And you can hear the guitars more, whereas in the first one, there's sort of this nice implied presence. You can't really follow the riffs as much.
They're below the synths, yeah.
There are these really detailed riffs that they don't sound like Norse riffs or even really like Swedish melodic BM riffs. There are things that sound like slowed down Terminus riffs going on under there.
Yeah.
And like this, they're chorded in the way that, the sort of more melodic black metal riffing is, and they're folky in that way. In some sense, ahead of their time in the way Eternus was. But I just heard this level of detail in it that I didn't realize was there. I wouldn't have said that about the first version of Stormcrow Fleet at all. I mean, it has that kind of feel. It feels kind of majestic and naturey and whatever, but it doesn't riff like black. I didn't think it riffed in that way at all.
Yeah, there's really... That's one of those few cases where I'll say there's really nothing that compares to Stormcrow Fleet.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a very singular... I get the idea.
A band that gets something... Oh, sorry. You know more about it than me anyway. Go for it.
I was just going to say, in terms of technique, there are comparisons you can make, but as far as, overall effect, nothing has really approached that. And I would say the same thing for Stream from the Heavens by Thurgathon.
Sure. No, I've never heard anything like that. As far as Skepticism, that's the only metal band where the guy wears like a classical chorister's thing to do a sort of an opera bass guy's oratorio sort of formal attire to perform, and it's like plausible.
Yeah, it's somehow perfect that they're all in formal wear on stage.
It's like church music, yeah. It's organ based, yeah. So we love Skepticism, and a thing that I've heard that approximates some of the Skepticism vibe, certainly doesn't sound like Skepticism or capture what made them good, but speaking of kind of hipstery bands from the West Coast, with Bellwitch earlier, Asunder, do you remember them?
Oh, vaguely. Not really, though.
So John Gossard was in it, who was also in Weakling, and later to be in some newer bands like Dispirit or Lycus. I haven't really checked those out, but I would say that, to me, Asunder is way better than Weakling. it has those kinds of pretentious, crusty things, like it has a cello in it.
Yeah.
But the cello sounds good, and the riffs, it has these sort of massive, arcing, melodic riffs. The riffing's way more disciplined than it is in Weakling.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure it was him writing all these songs. And there are also parts that just, chug like slowed down Bolt Thrower in the way that parts of Stormcrow Fleet chugs.
Yeah. It was like Stormcrow Fleet uses that in a very different way, though. Like, what they're attempting to convey is very different, I think.
Oh, sure. No, yeah. It's not like, you're not like windmill headbanging or whatever, right? It's,
Yeah, it's to convey the earth itself. I think we were talking, about like Thecodontion a couple episodes, or last episode about the idea of like geological metal, and I said that skepticism was like the instance of that for me. Like, yeah. Where all the...
Skepticism like mountains and trees.
Yeah, the instrumental voices are entirely inhuman. They are just representing natural forces.
There. Yeah.
But, no, I was... To bring it back to bass a little bit, I was so happy to enjoy this record as much as I did, and even happier to enjoy it in a way very different from their first record.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really rare when when a project ages or when a band reunites or something, especially when a long time has gone by.
Yeah.
It's unusual to try something new, even more unusual for it to work, and even more unusual for it to successfully follow things that have happened in the meantime, right?
Yeah. It's really
even
impressive.
Akerkaka did a really good job of it, I think, and they did a really good reunion album, but what they did was, in some sense, although it's different from their old stuff, they went back to what was familiar and comfortable to them, which was this more sort of proggy sound and this thrashy sound.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of bands, as they mature, say they lose the desire they lose the sense that they have anything to prove. So if the songwriting refines in a direction, it might get more accessible.
Yeah.
Right? They're just like, fuck it, man. I just like riffs, or, I just want to write rock music, and that can be for better or worse, right?
Yeah. This is, they're not going in that direction. This is kind of a nightmarish record in a way.
Yes, and it's completely serious. In some sense, it's alarming to think of somebody middle-aged composing something like this.
Yeah, this is like, I would say, like, I really love the first record, but this is, like, more evil and more sinister than that.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, this guy, you talk about the opposite of selling out, right?
Yeah, just go further down that fucking rabbit hole.
There are some bands, right? There are some really good bands. I wonder if I can think of an example that only get more brutal as they get older, or only get more sort of raw and crazy. And,
yeah.
Those are always great bands, and this is clearly like that, but with the added quality of being more avant or out there, right? This is...
And what's interesting is, like, almost in a contrast to Bellwitch, this is very avant-garde music, in a sense, but no one will give a shit about it outside of the metal scene,
Yeah, so you should give a shit about it. If you're listening to this show, look it up, buy it, or just throw out some likes on YouTube, at least boost its signal. The thing is, people will listen to, I was going to say, often we talk about things on here that are like a little bit out of my home territory, like the basement torture killings or whatever, or basic torture procedure or whatever, right? And I'll enjoy it. It'll be fun to listen to, and then I probably won't go back to it just because of my taste. This is a little bit, I do really like Skepticism, the Thurgathon, but this sort of extreme doom stuff is definitely out of my home territory. I'm definitely going to listen to this again.
Oh, same. I want to really, I guess the last thing I want to say about it is people don't realize how hard it is to write music like this. I have probably 3 half-finished Funeral Tomb records on my hard drive. Just because the scope that you need to understand to be able to develop music like this, and especially music like on this album, where there's motifs and ideas that are recurring but elaborated on throughout, like a long record, that's incredibly hard to do. You know?
Well, and to write just that one right 2-chord riff.
Yeah.
It has to have just the right time. You have 2 chords and you only hit them once each. So goddamn, you'd better have the right timing to make it A, sound good, and B, not sound like somebody else's riff.
Yeah, it's immensely difficult music to create just because of the attention span and the understanding of structure that it requires. So, you know, a lot of people listen to Funeral Tune, they're like, oh, it's like 3-chord riffs, this is easy. Fuck no. This is so much harder to write than any black metal or death metal stuff I've done.
And this hangs out in it's funeral doom, but it's also this torture doom stuff. And I think also it ties into the kind of weird undertone of Peaceville things that we keep talking about back here.
Yeah.
It has the,
there's like
accessible Paradise Lost, but like sort of soul-crushing.
Yeah.
Oh, Winter for sure.
Yeah,
and also,
100%.
I guess they literally were on Peaceville, weren't they? And also soul-crushing kind of like My Dying Bride stuff, right? The more out there death doom you definitely hear in this as well.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this is just a really good record. Maybe we'll put this on our year-end list, honestly. Right?
I could see it on there. I could see it bare minimum as like an honorable mention. Even
I'm
if
sure
it
we'll
doesn't
make
hit
a
the top
long
10.
I mean, you know, we'll probably do like 20 things, right?
Probably.
Right? We're each extremely important, so we each get 10.
We are very important people.
Yeah, we're actually the most relevant metal media on the internet. And with
there's not a lot of competition, so yeah.
True. Yeah, we are in fact almost the only metal media on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, respect to things like Bardo methodology that have held down before and whatever, but
a handful of good shit.
Yeah. There's some other good things, but we want the show to grow, and we want to expand our coverage, and we want total domination. And with that, I should do a prop.
Definitely.
If you've made it this far into the catacomb, and you've watched us unleash Cthulhu, and you're now running for your life, we would ask you to follow us on whatever media you like. We are on all the major podcast sites, you know, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can get us through Podbay or most of the other aggregators. We're on YouTube. We have, I've got some playlists up on the YouTube channel now, and I'll be expanding that over time. We seem to get about somewhat even listenership on both the pod and the YouTube format. And you know, if you like the show, follow us and throw us a like. If you're on Apple Podcasts, throw us a 5-star rating. Not necessarily because you think we deserve it, but just because
it doesn't matter.
It'll help.
Just give us 5 stars.
If you think we're worth 3 stars, throw us 5 stars. Yeah. If you think we're worth 5 stars, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, and as far as plans coming up, I'll be, you know, next week will be a sort of quicker episode probably. I'm busy with some shit. And then after that, pretty soon, we're going to start introducing interview content. We've got bands who are interested. We got, you'll hear stuff from Commodus. You'll hear stuff from Old Corpse Road, probably. Some of the Old Mill bands, or maybe the guy from Old Mill himself. And at some point, a premiere and a full-length interview with the dude from Serpent Column, Theophanous. So,
we got big plans, boys. Big plans.
Indeed. All right. Thanks for listening, and have a good night.
Take it easy, guys. Peace.